This is the F3 Knoxville podcast, streaming live every week from Knoxville, Tennessee, where we'll take a look into the lives of our high-impact men that make up F3 Knoxville. We'll cover news and updates from our AOs and region, talk about leadership, and much more. Welcome, and Iron Sharpens Iron. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the F3 Knoxville podcast. This is Steam, your host. I am so pumped that you are tuning in and listening today. We have a great show for you. Today I have on Moses. He doesn't need an introduction. His legacy speaks for himself as a true him. And we'll get to hear a little bit about his story and that journey for him, as well as the Bombshelter 3-year story in today's episode. So we are stoked that you get to listen to this, and hopefully you find some encouragement and life in it as well. We did have some technical difficulties a little bit, but I believe I have all those straightened out. So without further ado, let's rock and roll with the story of Moses and the Bombshelter 3-year. Enjoy. Hey, Moses, what's up, brother?
Hey, man.
I can. Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. I've got my my AirPods in, but it's coming through my phone.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if there's a way for me to switch that up or not.
Yeah, I use my my AirPods too. They've
They just kicked over.
Oh, it did. Okay, good. Yeah, they seem to work pretty well for recording, and that's usually what I use on calls and everything, and seem to get the job done.
Yeah, leave it up to me to be behind the times with the technology. I just got these not too long ago, so I'm still questioning how to use everything.
Well, there's always that level of only using something to like 10% of its capabilities, and then finding out, a couple months later, like, oh, I had no idea that these could even do this. Like I found something out yesterday about my phone, but I was like, I had no idea you could do this with a phone. like just taking a picture.
First thing I go to on something like that is the Garmin watch, right? Like I bet I've had the Phoenix 3, like, I don't know, since it came out.
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even scratch the surface with it. I've got F3 brothers that get upset because I don't even upload anything to like Garmin app or like Strava.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you uploaded stuff to Strava, I mean, you'd probably be tracking hundreds and hundreds of miles a week.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
No. That's actually I kind of it works both ways, right? So like. Mm-hmm. You can post your miles on there and people give you props and all this and that. And you can keep up with it and look back at it, what you did and stuff. But then there's like, I like to think that I stay off of that stuff so I can be sneakier, like people don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm lurking, right? But the true reality is that I'm just really not putting in the effort at all. Like I'm just not. But I pretend like I'm lurking.
Hey, there you go. You know what? Just stay in the shadows and let there be some kind of mystery around that area of life, Oh man. Well, bro, thanks for coming on, man. I know we have been trying to do this for a week or two, and I'm glad we finally got on, and I'm excited just to hear from you and a little bit about your story, and then we had the Bombshelter convergence 3-year not too long ago, and man, what an awesome event to kind of help round out this year. So I'd love to hear about kind of that journey with coming 3 years down the road, and I'm just really pumped to hear about that. So thanks for taking time out of your Monday evening to be on here.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I'm honored to be on this. I've listened to your previous podcasts and some of the other guys speak, and I want to thank you, for doing what you're doing, and potentially even bridging a gap that we didn't really know existed. Sometimes being out here on the Alcoa side of things, there is a little bit of a bridge there. I mean, the F3 guys, you guys are always there. You're always there. You're always willing to come and help out and be a part. And but there is that, like, a little bit of that connection that we don't get. I don't get to see Captain Crunch all that often, and I don't get to see you all that often, and Tank, and some of the other folks that you've had on, Pusher, those guys.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of high impact men that we don't get to see on a weekly basis or a day-to-day basis. And so, some of those convergences and those third F events and stuff like that, they're really something special for the Bombshelter guys.
Yes, yes, absolutely, and it's fun to see those two different communities collide. I mean, we are one community, like we're all F3, but it's fun to kind of get the band back together and bring different AOs into the mix and just see what's going on in each other's lives, from guys that we may not see as much because we get used to posting at our original AO or at the AO that's closest to our house or work or whatever. And so in a convergence, it's just fun to rub shoulders with, like you said, guys that we haven't seen for a while, and get to go through a F3 workout that we're all pretty used to, and get to kind of laugh and have some good solid mumble chatter together once again in the gloom.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Man, yeah, I am excited to dive into that, specifically with F3 Alcoa, because I know there's been some awesome things that have happened, a ton of wins in the past 3 years, and ton of wins that are continuing to happen. But man, let's start with Moses. So first of all, awesome name. I don't actually know if I know the story of your name, but how'd you get plugged in with something like F3, and I guess where did the term Moses come from?
Yeah. So, man, where to begin, right? Like, where
Yeah.
was the start, and
Yeah.
how much to share? So
Hmm.
I guess just to kind of jump right in, I'd have to say, uh, I'd have to say that the first couple of seeds planted for me to learn more about F3 and to eventually get into F3 was I was doing a ridiculous training event with three or four other guys at Alcoa Springbrook Park at what is now the AO, and during this, and when I say like stupid workout, I think we were going for 12 hours on a Saturday, and it was kind of like leading up to my world's toughest mudder adventures, and anyway, I was working out there and we were doing this thing, and one of the guys that was working out with me knew a guy that happened to just go running by, and
Hmm.
that person that was running by had run several laps at that point in the day, and was hitting some of the kids' playgrounds and getting in pull-ups and push-ups and sit-ups and all sorts of stuff, right? And that someone happened to be Captain Crunch, to come and find out later. So Ted Anslet. So I got to talk to him, and during my workout out there at Springbrook Park with these folks, when somebody says that, hey, that's a bad mamma jamma right there, it kind of perks your ears a little bit to, like, all right, so who's this guy, right? And so I start to look into who is Captain Crunch, and then on down the road, a little later that same year, this is 2016, I think, 15 or 16, something like that. And uh, I ran into him at the OEW Go Ruck event, the first Go Ruck to ever come to Knoxville, and it was an OEW event. Kevin Poe led that up, and I had kind of just noticed that, like, there were a lot of people that had patches with weird names on them and F3 things and stuff, and I had no true understanding of what any of that kind of stuff was, but recognized a few of the faces, and they kept telling me, hey, you got to come out to F3. And long story short, I was busy. I was too busy. Work and my own workout regiment and all that kind of stuff, and training for things and so on and so forth. Well, so long story, much shorter here. Work got to a point where, well, actually, my relationship with Christ was in the works during this time period as well. Um, I didn't grow up having a relationship. I didn't grow up knowing the story or anything of God or Jesus or anything like that. And so in this same time period, 2014, 15, really 2015 and into 16, I was saved and baptized and was really on a whole new, high of like, what is my life and what does it mean and who is Jesus and what does that mean? And I was really on this just completely different life path. And anyway, how all that kind of ties in is I began to get really, what's the word? Kind of like just disturbed at work. It was becoming more and more clear that I was working my life away, so to say. I was working 65, 70 hours a week. It's hard to come home and treat your loved ones, with respect and do house chores and get things done and so on and so forth with putting in so much work. And in doing so, I had begun to fall out of my workouts and my quality of life really just went to shambles. And through this course and this path of becoming to know God better and building a relationship, and through a lot of prayer and devotionals and things like that, I had come to a conclusion that my job was no longer what I was supposed to be doing. So it was really hard for me. It was really hard for me, but in a literally just in a step of faith. And like I said, I had done a lot of conversation, and there was a chaplain at work, and I had a lot of conversation with him. And I'm trying to keep this as short as possible, but
No, thank you.
I basically I resigned. I resigned from my job at that time, and it was the very first time in my life that I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have another job lined up. I was literally like taking a step of faith and following Christ at that point. Like I was like I was convinced that my relationship and my conversations and my quiet time and my devotions and all these things was to the point of like he has ruffled my feathers so much, like it is clear to me that I'm not to be here, and literally took a step in faith, and God provided. Again, long story, a little bit shorter. I went about 3 months unemployed, but during that 3 months, it was within the first week of resigning from my job that I went to the F3 workout, because I was like, hey, one of the reasons why I resigned from my job was my quality of life and getting back into working out and being physically fit and so on and so forth. And so I went to my very first ever F3 workout, and it was at the Dog Pound. And so I met the Dog Pound guys, 5:30 a.m. So also keeping in mind here, at this time I was living in Greenback, and it was all of a 45-minute drive to get to the Dog Pound, which was the closest one at that time. So to the Dog Pound I go, 45-minute drive, and I show up one morning, and I just kind of head down, head out to the circle. I get in the circle. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody. Nobody. I didn't tell anybody I was coming. I didn't reach out to anybody. So I just show up. And it's a tank queue. And he goes through his disclaimer at the beginning, and I think Dog Pound's a pretty tight knit group of folks. So I mean, I'm sure they recognize that there was some weirdo standing in their circle, and he goes through his disclaimer, and I remember him saying he actually said something along the lines of like, this is F3, so if you planned on being at F3 this morning, kind of like relax, you've made it, you're here. And that
Hmm.
actually did relax me because I had no idea, right? I'm in a parking lot at 5:30 in the morning with a bunch of other guys. And so yeah, so that was my first experience uh, at the dog pound. And I basically shared with them when they called me in after the workout. I
Hmm.
shared with them basically the story I just got done sharing. I and much briefer, of course. Hey, my name's Cody. I worked for this company. I've resigned. Um, I do Tough Mudders and Spartan races and so on and so forth. And then basically I mentioned like, hey, I've resigned from my job, out on a leap of faith. I'm chasing God as fast as I can run, and they ended up naming me Moses. And so
Wow.
uh, it really was, and like that was kind of like it was a bit of a shock to me too, right? Because again, like super young in my faith at
Hmm.
that time, and I'll be honest, like I went home that morning after that workout and pulled out the Bible and opened up Exodus and just started reading. Right? I was like, who is Moses? Like, what does this mean? Like, why do I have this name? All sorts of like I just,
Hmm.
like I was just in it. And that's just what I was doing. And and so yeah, so that's I guess that's how the Moses got brought about to F3 Knoxville.
Man, what a story. I mean, I don't want to gloss over just how bold that is to just feel the spirit move and spirit lead and just be like, hey, I need to do this and may not have a direction. Um, there's that phrase that we hear sometimes of, hey, that's a bold move, Cotton, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what I want to tag to that is like, man, that's a faith move right there. If that says anything, that even kind of getting into your faith and having a total life change of of the heart as well. I mean, that's a faith move to its core of striking out, not knowing exactly what's next, but being in that space of in between. And and what's cool to me about that, just hearing you speak about that, is and the Lord knew that you were supposed to walk out of that job and walk into F3, not knowing a soul. And here we are, years later, and you get to share that story, right? Of not only, hey, here's how I came to F3 and here's how I got my name Moses, but man, look what the Lord has done in my life just because the Spirit moved and I listened and was obedient. And that strikes just awesomeness and fear of the Lord. Just hearing that, I love that, man. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I actually didn't know that full
Yeah, well,
story.
and
Wow.
I'll tell you what, man, and that story continues, and it continues today, and
Hmm.
what I didn't get to or what I left out there was in that circle of trust, in that bomb on my very first day,
Hmm.
right? All new faces, name me Moses. I had two or three guys come up to me right after that in that parking lot and ask me, "Hey, what do you do? What have you done? Do you have a resume? Can you send it
Hmm.
to me?" Right? And
Wow.
and
Wow.
the job I have today was from an interview from a gentleman in that circle that very first workout.
Wow. Man.
5 years later, 4 years later, 4 years later, 4 years
Hmm.
later, the job I hold today is a job that an F3 brother stepped up to me. I sent him my resume, and 3 months later they hired me through an
Man.
interview process and all that kind of
Wow.
stuff. So yeah, man. I mean, the Lord works
Man.
in such crazy, mysterious ways, man. No doubt about
Yeah.
it. No doubt about it. And I could talk on and on
Wow.
about that and elaborate on that and all sorts of stuff. And maybe sometime I'd love to,
Hmm.
but I don't know that we
Yeah,
need to.
man. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
Well, I just, and that's really cool. And I keep going back and thinking about, the Lord ordains our steps and and completes the work that He's put in us. And to me, that just says that there's a continuation of, the Lord's not done with me yet, or the Lord's not done with you yet, and having an open hand policy of, okay, what's next, and the Lord showing up and maybe coming to you and saying, here's what I have for you next. Do you trust me? As we walk into this new adventure together, which is just really cool. And what I'd like to do is share, I think, my first just impression of you, if you don't mind, real quick.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
Because so one thing I love about you, and you are just one of the most hardcore guys I know, I think, in terms of running, rucking. And so I think the first time that we worked out together, I was like, man, who is this guy? He's just a beast, and you think of these guys in F3, like your wood shacks, your protons, your Captain Crunches, for example. Just these guys are just monsters. I'm like, man, he must have done something in the Olympics. He must have been I don't know, ex-SEALs or something. I'm like, who's this guy? And so that was like one of my first impressions of you, just being so impressed. And then just speaking to you, there's such a calmness and gentleness that just radiates like, man, this is a good dude. I just want to know more about this dude, and I also remember, I think when I first started getting into rucking, I think either you had been rucking for years, or you maybe had gotten into it as well. We would just go on these long rucks together at Lakeshore, and even kind of planning out the Bombshelter with Abort. Well, over 3 years ago now, just there's something about having a conversation under a ruck. That just is character building and kind of strengthening. And I remember just having some awesome conversations about these things you were just really excited about, these tough things. I'm like, why would he be excited about doing a 12-hour, 24-hour event, running over 100 miles, and I'm like, that's really cool. Like, I don't know if I could ever do that, but I just remember so clearly, and this has not changed over the years since I've known you. Just, this is a guy that, one, pursues the heart of Jesus really well. Two, he pursues hard things with just a tenacity as well. He doesn't shy away from hard things, and he runs towards them. And so that was one of my first impressions of you, and just being under a ruck with you, whether it's at a Go Ruck event or just rucking before or after F3 or somewhere in between. There's just this thing that surrounds Moses of like, man, this is a guy that likes hard things, and he's gonna do it for a cause that's bigger than himself, like OEW, for instance.
Yeah.
And that's worth it, man, and that's inspiring to other guys, F3 or not, or whether they do the same things that you do or I do. It's a story that needs to be told, and that kind of brings me to I think getting that text with Abort of like, hey, let's go check out this park one day, and kind of getting to hear you dream and plan out your vision for this would be really cool to bring F3 into this place right here. And I remember us rucking and doing some recon and checking out these places you would lead us. I remember us doing crunches over or on a bridge, on the Alcoa bridge. Man, that was awesome. And I remember that day because it was just fun to hear your vision and kind of see your heart for that. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, how that came about, like that idea of, hey, let's bring F3 to Alcoa.
Yeah, dude. So the story. First of all, thank you so much for your words. You're beyond kind, Steam. So I really.
That's honest. That's what's honest.
I appreciate it, man. The story kind of continues, right? So I mentioned that like approximately 3 months later, I had a job lined up and I was getting back to work. Well, if you remember, I talked to you about how I was living in Greenback at the time. So we're still talking like I'm going to F3 regularly now. and I'm going, 45-minute drive one way every day of the week. And there was a couple times I was hitting the fake glue,
Wow.
so I was getting 2-a-days, right? Because I mean I didn't have nothing to do, right? So,
Oh yeah.
and what I mean by nothing to do, I mean I kept myself busy. My neighbors, God kept me busy, right? I was doing lawn care, and
Mhm.
I was living in a little bit of an older subdivision, and so all the folks wanted stuff done when they learned that the young Moses was was at the house all day every day, and there was plenty of mulch to be laid.
There you go.
But yeah, God definitely provided for sure. But so uh, basically, so I'm about ready to start a job in Knoxville, right? And it dawns on me like
Mhm.
2 or 3 weeks before my start date of the job, it dawns on me that hey, this is crazy because I'm not going to be able to go to F3 anymore. New job. I got to be in Knoxville by 8 a.m. And I live in Greenback, which is 45 minutes from Knoxville.
Mhm.
And I can't go from Greenback to Knoxville to work out, back home to clean up, shower up, and go to work and be at work by 8 o'clock back in Knoxville again. And so it was like super ironic, and
Mhm.
I was like questioning everything. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, how do I leave a job to find, God and F3 and all this stuff to land a job and then drop right back out of it, you know? And so I call
Mhm.
Captain Crunch, man. And I'm like, Captain, I was like, I really want to launch an F3 in Blount County. And he didn't hesitate, not even a little bit, right? He was just like, yes. He's like, this has been
Yep.
mentioned before. There have been people that have wanted to do this. Like we've already got some outreach in Blount County. Like he was like, yes. He was basically like, if you can spearhead it, I'm on your tail, man. I got your six. Like, let's do this. And I was just like,
Nice.
done. Like done.
Yeah.
Like, tell me what to do and I'll handle it. Like it's done. And I'll tell you what, I got
Mhm.
chills right now just remembering that moment on the phone with Captain Crunch. But I tell you what,
Mhm.
that was really all there was to it that I remember, to be honest. Maybe I'm forgetting some stuff, but I mean, he basically was like, yeah, and told me, hey, Wood Shack's out in that area, and he's got a few guys, and so I picked up Wood Shack right away into conversations, and to this day, I mean, he's like he's the right hand man, for the bomb shelter.
Yeah.
But that's I mean that's kind of how it happened, right? I kind of realized that hey, uh, I'm starting a job, and it's going to take me back out of being able to go to F3, and so it was like, man, it's
Mhm.
time to launch one right here. And again, at that time, it wasn't like it was self-centered
Mhm.
or anything like that, because I mean, it was a self-centered, driven motivation, right? But it had the positivity of like, hey, like we can really get this going. And then after talking to Captain, he's like, hey, man, there's a lot of people in Blount County that need it. And he's like, and we can already name off, 5 or 10 guys right now, friends of friends and stuff like that are ready to go. And so being in Greenback, it was still almost 35 minutes to Springbrook Park to the AO. And so it was still a drive
Mhm.
for me, but it allowed me to get back and forth and still into Knoxville in time. So that was kind of
Mhm.
the original conversation, and how all that kind of got played out. And then yeah, man, you're right. I just kind of sent out that text to people, to yourself and Abort and some, some true hymns, man. And I was like, hey guys, like, you know, I wanted to get feedback from everybody, right? Because again, it was it was me spearheading it, but I hate to think or
Mhm.
have anybody ever think that it was like, like a personal endeavor or something, because that's not at all what it was, or what it
Sure.
ever is.
Sure.
And so it
Yeah.
was like, hey, like I threw it out there to the chat, and I'm like, hey guys, like anybody available to do, I call it recon, right? Like let's go recon the area, you know. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
like when I
Yeah.
first moved here, I lived right across the street from the park. So I had done quite a bit of running around and quite a bit of training, and had, 10-mile runs around the Greenway and all sorts of stuff that I had already done previously. And so I had a pretty good idea of what all was out there, but I had never looked at it from the eyes of F3, because I feel like once you're an F3 guy, you start looking at stuff a little differently when it comes to like playgrounds and working out. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
that's no
yeah.
longer
Oh
like
yeah.
a
Oh
kid's
yeah.
playground over there, right? Like that's like, dude, like man, I see some. We can do like some like rope climbs on that fireman's pole, and we can do like you really start looking at stuff
Yeah.
differently.
Like,
Yeah,
could we do
right, right.
11s
Is
here?
there a hill right next to it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I
Exactly.
wanted to kind of get some other guys involved to come out and like, hey, let's. And I think at the time, right, it was like, hey, let's we can walk it or run it or mountain bike it or or ruck it or whatever. And
Mhm.
and I think it just kind of landed on the ruck group a little bit, and you and Abort,
Mhm.
and next thing you know, we're out rucking 10 miles through Alcoa to doing little mini
Yeah.
workouts here and there just to keep it interesting, I guess. But yeah, I'll never forget getting up on top of the Alcoa Bridge, as you mentioned, over top of Alcoa Highway, and getting a few reps in. Man, that's a fun place.
That was fun. Yeah, I think we waved to
Oh
some
yeah.
cars and got some good honks back. So that was affirmation right there. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, you know, I don't know if I had rucked that far and done workouts during during my rucking career so far. So that was the first. I was like, yeah, I guess we'll maybe ruck 2 or 3 miles and go check. No. We rocked like way over, probably 7 to 10. You're right, and did workouts, and man, it was awesome. It was fun to check that out. I was like, all right, here we go. So and you mentioned something in there about you know wanting to bring it to Alcoa. Um, which is not self-centered. And I think you called this out of you know there was an element in there of like, oh, let's bring it here because it'd be closer. But even with that, you had that mindset of, hey, there are guys that need F3 um, that don't live in Knoxville. So that idea of expansion and reaching those sad clowns of those guys in Alcoa that need F3 just as much as those guys in Knoxville. And so, yeah, it was closer, to Greenback, for example. But what I really appreciate about that is that you acknowledge that, and I think that's what we do when we plant new AOs, new regions. Not necessarily because, hey, this is going to shave off a couple minutes of my drive, but hey, there's probably another Cody Self, or there's probably another Dan Henson, or there's probably another Ted Anselett that needs F3
Yeah.
just like I did.
So like
When I
what
first got to F3.
the guys
Um,
we still joke about it to today a little bit, right? But Blunt County needed a
mhm.
dancing idiot, and I was that guy, right? And Woodshack
That's a
Woodshack
dancing
was the
idiot.
guy
That's
to
funny.
come in and like be like, well, we can't let this idiot just look like a complete idiot, so I'm gonna join him. And then next thing you know, we're launching an AO of dancing idiots, and it's a party.
That's awesome. It is. Now, when you did the launch, and I actually have a really funny story about this launch as well. That I'm not even sure that um, but Ratchet definitely knows. So my entrance to rucking before I ever did a go ruck event, Ratchet put out this thing. He's like, hey, if you're interested in doing a go ruck event, I'll put on like a go ruck example. And so myself and Onesie and I think a couple other guys showed up um, to some coordinates out in Oak Ridge. And so the plan was to do this overnight ruck with Ratchet, where he would pose his cadre and kind of walk through the steps of a go ruck event, quote unquote. And let me just say this out flat: I've never done a go ruck event that has been as hard as the Ratchet event he put on. Uh, since I started Go Ruck, man, it's crazy. I was like, who is this guy? Why am I doing this
It's
at
awesome.
4 a.m.?
It's awesome.
And so the it was phenomenal, man. I mean, we were in the mud the first 10 minutes. I was like, all right, so really set the stage for me for Go Ruck. But the plan was to do this event, get done in time to where we would go post at the bomb shelter for the launch. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Your boy locks his keys in the car, and and it was like 20 minutes away, and I was like, oh my gosh. And my mind was fried, my legs and arms were fried. I'd never rocked overnight before, and so I'd do this, and Ratchet just kind of sits there and looks at me and was like, you're joking, right? And I'm like, no, I'm really sorry. And so I had to call AAA or whatever it was, and I was bummed because I missed the launch of the bomb shelter, because I, for whatever reason, just locked my keys in my car, and so that's always kind of just a funny story. One, just because I got smoked by Ratchet over an overnight event that I did not expect to ever get smoked by. And two, I didn't make it to the launch because I locked
that's all
my keys
right,
in my car.
man. That's all right.
But
Oh
tell me about the
gosh,
launch.
man. It's that's hard. That's hard to do. Because it's like, the things like if you could have just had it on video or recorded what the bomb was that day, or you know, um,
Mm,
I'll tell you this.
yeah.
A memory that's in my head that has never left and will most likely I don't ever see it leaving is kind of like where the flag was transferred. Uh, and not necessarily I guess not transferred,
Mm,
but where the flag was planted, and where it was kind of like they did like a little mini ceremony towards the end of the workout where like he being Captain Crunch led it, and so they
hmm
they had planted the flag back by a water fountain in the park, kind of tucked away in like a kind of a rock ledge, tree filled corner. Kind of.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. This is not the first time this has happened, or will it be the last time? But, we're going to roll with it and move on with the show. So thank you for sticking with us, and let's get tuned up for the rest of the show. Hey,
Steam.
brother. Hey, sorry about that. I think the AirPods must have cut out or something. But I heard a little rock tree in the corner where we're planting the flag for the first time at Bombshelter.
Yeah. So it was planted back there by the water fountain. It
Yes.
was kind of like a little bit of like a rock cliff, rock face area tucked away in the corner,
Hmm.
and again, I'm not going to do it justice because when Captain speaks, man, it's powerful.
Yes.
And he shared some words, and it was goosebumps, chills, all sorts of that kind of good vibe feeling kind of stuff, and spoke like positivity over the park and the area and just what it can be and all that kind of stuff, and
Hmm.
called me up front and like put his hand on the shovel and put my hand on the shovel, and he was just kind of like, it's yours, brother, and like that feeling, man, like just how all that played out in front of, gosh, I hate that I don't know, but I think we were right at like 40 guys, give or take a couple, for
Awesome.
the launch. Um, and, uh, and then we actually jogged like the rest of the park, like with the flag, and back up to like where the official AO is at, up
Hmm.
in the parking lot, at the grinder, we call it.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was like it just got real.
Wow.
Like the
Yeah.
the mission the mission the mission lives on for Blount County.
Man.
It was awesome. It really was. We had gosh, I shouldn't even try to get into numbers because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say we had like 10 or 12 FNGs that day or something like that. And,
Wow. Awesome.
um, We had a strong launch.
Mm-hmm.
F3 Knoxville guys came through strong for the next several weeks, and putting the cues on there. You mentioned Ratchet earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That's the weasel shaker, right? I mean, he's the behind the
Yeah.
scenes guru, man. Like Ratchet does so much for F3 Knoxville
Mm-hmm.
that goes unseen, and there are a lot of other folks too, but man, Ratchet, he's one of those core guys that he's awesome. He really
Yes.
is. He's someone special for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was powerful all the way around.
Man, that's really cool. And thinking back to where we are, now, and hitting that 3-year benchmark, and like you mentioned, it's not about numbers, but F3 Alcoa has, really impacted just so many men, and conversely as well, their families, their communities, their homes, their schools. When you think back to the launch, and then in the past 3 years, just how much F3 has brought to these men, and how it's sharpened that iron day in, day out, and going up past the 3-year mark. What have you seen, um, that's just remained a constant at the Bombshelter AO within the past 3 years, or has there been anything that's really just stood out to you in the past 3 years, is like, man, this is worth putting the boots on, running out the door, and this is worth fighting for day in, day out?
Oh man, so much, so much. Just the camaraderie and the getting to know each other.
Hmm.
Not just the workout, right? I mean, you get to know each other in the workout, and you get to mumble chatter through the workout.
Hmm.
But I'll tell you what. And this is dawned on me over the 3 years. Because when I started, I found F3 because it was a workout group. Like I needed to get back, get fit.
Hmm.
That was part of my quality of life was I needed that, right?
Yeah.
And now I look at it and it's like I need to hear that bomb. I need to hear
Mm.
that guy across the circle or that guy in the center of the circle share something that's on his heart because
Yeah.
it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And uh, you know, um, say that it has to be powerful or has to be something super special every time you get in the center circle.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, if you're sharing something that means something to you and it's something that's on your heart, it's powerful,
Hmm.
and it's most likely going to touch somebody else in some way, So
Yes.
I got to throw some props out to a couple of guys here because I'll tell you what, like we've got two double respect guys that show up 2-3 days a week and
Hmm.
grind it out with us every single time. And I'll tell you, like that's another thing is different. Like everybody's in a different point in life, right?
Hmm.
And so we've got some guys that are 18, and heading off to boot camp or heading off to college. We've got some guys that are, in their mid upper 20s. Um, some of them are starting families. Um, some of them are just getting married. We got guys in the 30s and 40s that have been married for a few years and may have a couple of kids young, some 2.0s.
Hmm.
And then we've got a couple of guys. We got a 65-year-old and a 68-year-old,
Wow.
And the thing is like when somebody has something to share in the center circle for the bomb,
Hmm.
you're impacting somebody, right? When our older packs speak, like the messages that they bring and the experiences that they've experienced, and when they're like willing to step into that center circle and share something that's on their heart, it's beyond any men's small group. It's beyond any like workout group you're going to get. Like you're not going to get something like
Hmm.
that at the gym or anything else. Now, don't get me wrong. I was at the gym tonight. I like my gym time too,
Oh
but
yeah.
but it's so much more than a work. It's not a workout, you know.
Hmm.
It's the male. It's just I don't know, man. I'm gonna get tore up. I'm gonna get I'm gonna lose my words here, but that's where I'm at with it. Is like um just the different things that the other guys can speak on and speak about
Hmm.
and are willing to share how the rest of that circle kind of into their life for a minute. Um, there's a lot of love there. There's a lot of trust, and they know that guy to their left and that guy to their right has their six something, and we're gonna be there for them. And that's where I'm at with it. 3 years of that across, you know, however many
Hmm.
hundreds of guys have showed up. Um, you know, whether they're still showing up or not, or you know, however that looks, right? I mean, and those guys that haven't been out for a while or have dropped off or whatever, I mean, you know, their spot's always in the circle, you know, and we'd love to have them back. Um, but it's just that relationship and that core bond and building. Um, and like you said earlier, you know, and like we said the day we launched, like Blount
Hmm.
County needs that. Blount County needs that, man.
Yes. Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely. And still needs that after year three, just like Knoxville needs that after year five, and just like Morristown will need that after year one, and so you have all these areas that are now grooming and planting those seeds, like you mentioned earlier, of guys need this, and especially guys on the inside, who kind of see that light, as we call that second F. So the fellowship, the glue, that's what holds guys together. That's what brings them back. Where you realize, yeah, hey, we're not a workout group. That's something we do, but that's not who we are, and that's not what we are as well. And I think that's a really important distinction, because what we do in F3 carries far beyond, or I'm sorry, what we do in the first F and in the gloom, and when we show up at 5:30 in the morning, or in the fake gloom as well, what we do there carries far beyond, those 45 minutes, or those 60 minutes, and we take that back to our sphere of influence, and kind of like you mentioned earlier, that's why these convergences are just so paramount, um, because yeah, you're going to get a good workout, but there's something extra. There's something that's going to be shared, a word that's going to be spoken, some questions, some probably tough questions that are going to be asked of you, as a man, to help you think about how am I benefiting, my community and my family, is F3 and the bombs I'm hearing, are they helping me be a better man to my wife, to my family, to my to
Right.
my work, and whether guys admit that or not, the answer is it is, and so something I heard, a couple years ago, which I really liked, is what we do in the fake gloom. So that workout portion, that's kind of the huddle. And so what we hear there, specifically in that circle of trust and that bomb, when you hear guys shout out their prayer requests and give these encouraging words, that's the huddle. We take that back out into the game, which is life after we work out. Back to our
Right.
job, our relationships, things of that nature, and so after 3 years of doing F3, or well, 4 years or 5 years of doing F3 now for you, um, would you mind going into how you've seen that kind of impact your spheres of influence, and maybe your walk with Christ as well? Hey, sorry, man. I am having the most trouble with my technology today. Whew,
It's all
man.
right. No problem. I'm kind of relieved to know it wasn't me, but it could be at any moment. It could be.
Hey, just a perk of good technology, or technology at its finest. but to continue on, yeah. Um, I guess how has coming to F3 and kind of paying attention to those bombs really um, helped you as a man and especially with your walk. I know you mentioned earlier that that was a pretty big transition when you found F3, and if you don't mind sharing a little bit about how those two have had a unique relationship in the past 4 or 5 years of you being part of um, F3 and then growing as a high impact man yourself.
Yeah. So Steam, technology just bummed out on me, and so I didn't hear all those parts of your question.
Oh, no
So I
way,
think you're
no worries.
asking how the 3 years of the bomb shelter has affected me and how it's furthered me in my maybe my faith walk, and then like some of the impact from the bombs and things like that. Is that about the?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So um gosh, man, again, just like kind of hearing um other guys kind of take that leap of faith in a sense of like having enough courage, um and faith at the same time to like step into the center circle and share something that might be really difficult, right?
Mm,
Whether it's an addiction to something, or a reaction to something that maybe happened at the house,
mhm,
child related or wife related, that maybe they didn't feel that they reacted appropriately, um, to to even loss of family members,
mm,
and to have um, a circle of F3 and to be able to take a knee and put a hand on the shoulder, and to be able to be there for those guys in times that they need somebody or something,
mhm,
and then at the same time, for those guys to feel a level of confidence, with what they may have at one time thought was a
mhm.
workout group, you know to see people kind of grow, um, and and it I don't want to say it like turns into a men's group, but like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I,
Yeah.
I want to distinguish, like, it's not like but it has some of the same, like, I mean, we can be there for you, we are there
Yes.
for you,
Mhm.
and to be able to like walk out your day-to-day life knowing that you've got another guy that's willing to get in the fray of things with you and to help you walk. And in return, I mean, you're going to end up helping them walk too. And that's it's so powerful and it's challenging at the same time, right? Like, I've got a couple of guys that, don't shy away from challenging me
Mhm.
into the next step uh, of my faith, right? They're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Moses, like," and they'll call me out on something, or they'll ask me about something that maybe I've mentioned before in my bomb.
Mm.
Hey, how's this going? Or hey, how's that going? Or hey, have you looked into this yet? And it's like, oh, no, but I need to, like,
Right.
and so they hold me accountable
Mm.
as well, like, right, like the accountability's there. It's all the way around, and it may start off as mumble chatter, it may start off as a mustard seed,
Mhm.
but they make me better, and they make each other better for sure.
Mhm. Well, and that's so important too. Of it can feel like a men's group a little bit, in the sense that you're going to have some guys that are going to toe that line with you, and that are willing to go and toe that line and pick you up when you're down and hold you accountable. And just like you would expect them to do the same
Yes.
of calling you into to being a high impact man or being a better version of yourself. That doesn't stop after the Namarama, for example, or that doesn't just start when we circle up
Right.
and
Right.
do the disclaimer. That goes far beyond um, what we do in the gloom or fake gloom. And I love that you can share those stories of guys that check in on you too, and we all have those guys in F3 that have maybe asked us the hard questions or maybe taken us to the hard conversations, and we need that. That's part of pressing in and sharpening the iron.
Sure. Absolutely.
Sharpening iron is not just a physical thing. It sounds like a very physical task, but it's also very mental, emotional, and spiritual thing as well. Like we should push each other to be better men, and sharpen that iron, bar none.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which I think is something neat
Yep.
for
I
those
love it, man.
guys that
I do.
are in their respect, double respect, triple respect, all the way to guys that come out of high school and in college and do F3 as well.
Yeah, there's a little something for everybody for sure. I think I think yeah, I think it goes all it's full circle. I think that sometimes those older guys like to know and see,
Hmm.
hey, we didn't totally screw up the younger generation. you know, and likewise, like we like to hear those experiences that those guys have been through and the amount of wisdom that they have, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, they have grandchildren, and so, some of us are just starting families or just getting married or, that's somebody that's in that circle that tiptoes that line with you 3 days a week or, every morning or however your AO looks, right?
Hmm.
Like that's somebody that tiptoes that line with you every morning that you can ask that question to. That's another him. That's another man out there at 5:30 in the morning with you getting it in. That's not going to judge you when you ask him, some random question about, hey, what'd you do with your son when he was 5? In this particular situation, or whatever, right? Like that's a guy that's going to sit there and take that question exactly the way you mean it to come out, and he's going to give you a raw, real answer.
Yeah.
And there's just not, where do you find that level of comfort, out in like today's world, unfortunately,
Hmm.
you know?
Oh, that's so true, and that's so good. Yeah, so good, so good. Um, yeah, and you can point to those guys and go to them for guidance and wisdom, and just like we hear in our convergences and our third F events, um, that's that's where you get to hear a lot of heart from guys, which is really what I loved about the convergence at the Bombshelter as well for 3 years, because you just got to hear truth and hear a lot of things, whether it's in the talk, or the questions that were asked in those smaller groups that we kind of break out to at those events too, of just things that make you think and things that you can take back home, things that you can take back and kind of chew on and then bring that up in conversation and go to that place with other brothers, um, the next day or next week as well.
Yep,
So like,
for
um,
sure, man.
well,
It's
man,
a it's almost like a place of comfort among other men that are just, you know, outstandingly strong. It's like
yes.
it's comfort, but it's not. It's I mean it's crazy. You mentioned the whole iron sharpens iron thing, and I absolutely I love that. I always have,
Hmm.
and it's looked for me at different stages of my life, right? And it does. It seems like and feels like a very physical thing,
Hmm.
but as I sit back and I reflect on the times that I say iron sharpens iron, it's usually when either I'm challenged or I'm challenging someone to something greater, more more like community outreach, or
Mm-hmm.
more like picking up a brother who's low.
Mm.
Now that I really take time to like kind of reflect on that, it's it actually it again, it sounds like a physical thing, but I think really it's more mental and
Mm.
spiritual. A lot of the times when I go there, or when I hashtag that, it's more of like get right, get
Yeah.
sharpened, you know.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, it carries farther than the physical spectrum. Yeah. And as it was intended to. I mean, you look at that phrase, and as the second part of that phrase, as one man sharpens another, as one brother sharpens another, or as one person sharpens another. Um, that is definitely a community driven thing, that we should want to emulate as we learn how to be high impact men, and as we learn how to be better versions of ourselves and better leaders within our world as well. Absolutely. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this week's F3 Knoxville podcast. We hope it brought you some life and encouragement that you can take back to your own sphere of influence as you continue to sharpen that iron and develop yourself and others around you into the best versions that we are called to be. I do apologize for the technical difficulties. Unfortunately, that is something that comes up from time to time. I will be working on that for next week's episode, making sure to smooth those out. But if you do have any questions or suggestions or things you want to hear on the podcast or people you want to hear from, shoot me a line on Slack for our F3 Knoxville guys, or for any feedback and commentary as well, feel free to just shoot me an email too. My email is dhenson, DHENSON 1160@gmail.com. Now, like with every podcast we've done so far, we will end with the Nemo-Rama. Because we're having some technical difficulties, we'll hear from our guest Moses in a second. But my name is Dan Henson, 26 Steam. Iron sharpens iron.
Cody Self, 35, Moses.
So remember, men, live with intentionality, live courageously, no man left behind, no man left the same, and iron sharpens iron.